And this is why you should always check the trunk of your car. In 2013, a 47-year-old wife from Hong Kong named Wang Su Feng and her 16-year-old daughter Lily Ka Li Ling was on the road, and after 4 minutes of driving, they parked at Sayo Village bus stop, only for both of them to suddenly pass away seconds later. The Hong Kong police was baffled as to how a mother and a daughter suddenly passed away inside the car, so they conducted a thorough investigation, and after running an autopsy, the police found that Wang and Lily died of carbon monoxide poisoning inside the car. So the police went through the vehicle trying to trace where the carbon monoxide gas was leaking from, and once they got to opening the trunk, what they saw was truly odd. Turns out, 2 yoga balls were found inside the trunk and was leaking extremely toxic gas that ultimately flowed to the driver and passenger seats. And who was the killer, you may ask? It was none other than the husband and former university professor Ka Kim Sung, who killed his wife and daughter because he was unhappy with his current marriage and was having an extramarital affair with one of his students.
Can I show you a scary video? After this, she called the cops.
I looked out, I didn't see anybody out on the road or any cars or anything. So I went back to my ring video to make sure I wasn't just courageously hearing something.
I can hear somebody saying something, but I can't.
Well, I posted it.
According to the YouTuber who posted that video, Chilling Scares, they still don't know who that voice was.
Does a photo like this make you feel uncomfortable? Or something like this? This phenomenon is known as the uncanny valley. Introduced by Masahiro Mori in the 1970s, the uncanny valley refers to a phenomenon where our brains can register that something is very close to human, but we're also aware that something's not quite right. It's the in-between, where we can process that something looks like a person, but it's not a person, and it causes feelings of distress. Believed to be an evolutionary mechanism, which is also not exclusive to just humans, the uncanny valley is where we perceive these things to be a threat or not of us, and it can cause feelings of panic. One of the most well-known modern examples of this was actually an early test screening of Shrek in 2000, where Fiona was rendered as very hyper-realistic. So realistic that it surpassed the threshold of comfort and cartoon and moved into the uncanny valley. Children actually became so panicked at this screening, they were reported to be crying at the movie anytime she came on the screen. The entire film had to be halted and she was re-rendered. I'm not sure if this was the actual earliest version of Fiona that made it to the screening, but to put this in context, the one that made it to worldwide theaters is right above. But I did happen to find this monster from some of the early test footage of Shrek. The uncanny valley is still a widely unstudied phenomenon, but it continues to become more and more pervasive in entertainment as well as our modern animation.
Stay all left on the last one.
There's nobody up on 23?
No, they evacuated everybody down.
All right, they're probably going to the bus. Thank you.
Yeah. Pretty clear at one point, and then this whole bunch of smoke and glass, and I think we're just about to...
I saw somebody push a boy out the window, and I was looking up at the building, and to tell you who the nun was, I can't say, but I knew it was a nun because she had to have it. And he kind of hit and...
Bounce?
Well, I guess you'd call it. It was a bounce. And then he laid still.
Sally also said she saw a boy drown after he was thrown off a rowboat and into a lake.
All I said is, did he drown?
Who'd you say that to?
To the nun. And she said, oh, don't worry, he's gone home for good.
Many other kids from St. Joseph's told similar stories. This is Ed Dupree, explaining how he was thrown off a boat.
I was fighting for my life when I was swimming ashore.
And did this happen to other children?
Oh, yes. Yes. All the time that I was there, it happened. Every summer.
Patty Zeno said a nun named Sister Priscilla tried to push her off a windowsill when she was standing on the outside washing the window.
The windows were open, probably like this, so that they could hold you by your ankles. And she just went.
Okay. And what happened?
I started to fall.
You should probably know what is going on in North Korea. From Friday forward, people in North Korea are prohibited from smiling, shopping, or drinking as part of an 11-day mourning period commemorating the death of former leader Kim Jong-il. Even if your family member dies during the mourning period, you are not allowed to cry out loud, and the body must be taken out after it's over. Anyone who disobeys the rule will be arrested, just like they are every year, and in some cases, sentenced to death.
Photos with disturbing backstories.
Tesla sees dead people!
Dude! That is creepy! Oh my god!
How is it possible for an entire group of people to hear or see someone who doesn't actually exist? Welcome to Creep Time on TikTok with Silas Dean. This is the unexplained mystery of Frida Sofia. In 2017, Mexico was hit with a devastating earthquake that crushed multiple buildings. One of those buildings being a school right in Mexico City. There were, of course, numerous children and adults who were trapped under the rubble, but there was one girl in particular who caught the attention of the media. A 12-year-old girl trapped under the debris who was responding to rescuers saying that her name was Frida Sofia. There was round-the-clock coverage, and a nation assembled around the story of Frida, and she became a symbol of hope in these efforts to rescue the children and her. Rescuers and journalists had multiple accounts of speaking with Frida and confirmed that she was far down beneath the rubble underneath a piece of granite but physically stable. There are some responders who report even seeing her wiggle her fingers far down through a crack in the debris. But here's the problem. Frida did not exist. The school actually comes forward and makes a statement saying that they have all children accounted for and they have never had a record of a girl named Frida Sofia. Multiple stations and people of leadership have to come forward and make statements of retraction and say that she's not down there, she never was, and she's not real. Suspected of being one of the largest cases of mass hysteria in modern history, it is completely unexplained how there were so many separate accounts of people who claim to speak to her or even see her beneath the rubble. Ultimately, the existence of Frida is a complete mystery, and there are still some people who believe she was really down there in that debris.
Port side.
Man overboard. Man overboard.
Shit! Port side.
Chernobyl. Disaster. In the year 1968, scientists wanted to test the safety system in a nuclear power plant located in Chernobyl, a city in Ukraine. It gone completely wrong. There was an explosion which caused a high amount of radiation in Ukraine. Workers had to cover the nuclear power plant with sand to lower the radiation. But there was one more problem, and probably the biggest. There was melting steel, so radioactive that if it would touch the water it would cause an explosion so big 3 other nuclear power plants would explode. If that happened, half of Europe would be affected by the radiation. 3 workers had to drain the water so the steel wouldn't touch it. They knew that they would die if they go in there. That's why the workers were called the Suicide Squad. Luckily, they managed to drain the water. They were heroes to Europe. Worst ways people have died, Part 6.
Disturbing things caught on dashcam. In this 2016 dashcam footage, a man is driving his car on an isolated road at night when he notices something strange on his way. As the car rounds a corner, an out-of-place individual dressed in a suit with a briefcase and an umbrella comes into frame, followed by another identical man. Fearful, the 2 men in suits retreat into the long grass, where it becomes evident that there are numerous individuals who seem identical to each other.
Oh my God, they have guns. Jesus, go,
go, no,
please, what? Please, what? Please, what? No, Espanol, please. We're just...
¿Dónde vas?
Sí, han perdido los chavos. Please.
No problem, okay?
I'm about to pass out.
No problem.
Logan, don't. It's okay, it's okay, it's okay.
No problem, okay? What? You will.
Can we go?
Well done.
The most horrifying things ever live-streamed Part 5. There will be some upsetting sounds at the end of this video, so viewer discretion advised. This beautiful bride-to-be is sitting alongside of her brother, and minutes away from her wedding where she planned to surprise her fiancé with a helicopter entrance, something she'd been dreaming of since she was a little girl. She's all smiles in the beginning of her live, but once the aircraft begins shaking wildly, her expression melts into anxiety and then pure panic. Still, she tried to close her eyes and calm her nerves. Suddenly, screams erupt, a siren begins blaring, and something unthinkable happens. The aircraft crashed into the woods 1 mile away from her fiancé, who was waiting at the end of the aisle. Nobody survived.
Okay guys, so that spider video I showed you guys, I caught the spider right there. It's inside that bowl. I don't know how I was able to caught it, but I saw it and I just grabbed the bowl and it's in there. So I'm just take a peek so that we can see what it looks like. Okay. You guys ready? All right, let's do this. In 3, 2, 1.